We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
You ever play a game that looks incredible, sounds ambitious, says all the right things, and still leaves you feeling nothing? Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has all the ingredients of a modern classic. It's got the art, it's got the combat, it's got a story that wants to feel meaningful. But once you actually start playing it and try to get into its world, something doesn't click. And the longer you stick with it, the more obvious it gets. The game is all surface, and once you scratch it, there's not much underneath. The premise is great. Every year the paintress paints a number in the sky, and everyone of that age vanishes. It's weird, haunting, and honestly, pretty compelling. But the story can't carry that weight. Characters speak in riddles like they're trying too hard to sound deep. You're hit with vague murals, cryptic flashbacks, and dramatic cutscenes that don't really explain anything. It's like the game wants to be mysterious instead of actually telling a story. Even worse, it leans way too hard on emotion. Everything's tragic, everything's poetic, and after a while, it just blends into one long, moody monologue. Without quieter, more grounded moments, none of it really lands. The game seems to think that mystery is enough to keep you going. But mystery without clarity isn't intrigue, it's just noise. Eventually, you stop asking questions because you stop expecting answers. Combat sounds great on paper. You pick your moves as you would in a turn-based RPG, but you also have to dodge and parry enemy attacks. At first, it feels fresh, but it doesn't take long before it starts repeating itself. Characters are built around different mechanics. Gustav charges up, Lune uses stains, Mayal switches stances. But none of it really changes how you play. It all ends up feeling like the same loop. Attack, dodge, wait your turn. It doesn't matter who you're using, the fights play out the same way. It starts to feel less like strategy and more like going through the motions. The timing for parries feels off as well. It's just way too frustrating. Some attacks don't even respond how you expect them to, and when the game doesn't give you reliable feedback, learning this system just gets frustrating. And because of that, I would really rather dodge than parry. Much simpler, less frustrating. There are other mechanics in the game like Monoko's transformation or Ciel's cards, but they don't really add anything. It's just more of the same, more of what the other characters have, just in a different way. You try them out and forget about them. They're cool ideas, and I really do like Monoko's Bestial Wheel, but they don't really change combat or evolve into anything meaningful. The worst part of this is how little it changes as you go. There's not much to discover in combat, no big shifts in strategy, just the same enemies with the same loops, stretched across way too many hours. At a certain point, the game gives you a flying mount, Eske, and it shows off these huge, beautiful environments. It makes you think you're about to explore something open and full of secrets, but you're not. Most areas are locked behind story triggers or quests. You can't go anywhere until the game lets you, and even when you can explore it, it doesn't feel worth it. There's no real loot, there's nothing that you will find that will really change the way the game plays and feels. No big secrets, just the same enemies again and again. And that's another thing. No matter where you go, you're fighting the same handful of enemy types. They might look a little different depending on the area, but the way they fight doesn't really change. So even the optional stuff ends up feeling the same. So yeah, most of what looks like exploration just leads to empty spaces and recycled fights. Fights which become incredibly boring. The only thing that I have found that might be worth exploring for are the new weapons that you can find. But ultimately, I think they come with more annoying crap that you have to deal with. I'll explain. So, the game throws a lot at you when it comes to skills, upgrades, and weapons. You've got your Picto skills, your attributes, Lumina conversions, catalysts, special moves, so on and so forth. It looks like there's a lot of depth here. But none of it really matters, because most of the time, you just pick what works, and you move on. All of the skills are relatively the same. The skills really don't change how you approach most fights. There are some synergy moments here, but not many. So the skills don't really open up new strategies. You're not planning builds, you're not really building around these, you're just picking a little bit of each, or at least I picked like as much of a diversification of skills that I could, so I could have weaknesses that were for every enemy that I might run into. And most of the skills that I could unlock didn't really appeal to me or the playstyle that I was going for, so I didn't really unlock new skills as I played, and I mostly stuck to the same set of skills that you get early on because they work, and they were what I wanted. And I found, for the most part, weapons were the same, but then they also sometimes weren't, because certain weapons had certain abilities that I would want to use, but then it modified certain attributes that I was either speccing into or wasn't speccing into. So a certain weapon had certain attribute bonuses, and then another weapon had different attribute bonuses on the same character. It kind of feels like they were trying to give you different playstyles and different weapons and different build variations, but none of it actually matters and none of it changes much. And the crazy part is this whole system has layers on top of layers on top of layers, but they don't really add anything but confusion. There's no moment where any of it clicks. There's no synergy between any of this, in my opinion. It just ends up feeling bloated. Like the developers just added a bunch of crap in here to say that they had deep mechanics, but never figured out what to truly do with them. And when the choices don't really matter, the whole thing turns into noise. You stop caring about upgrades because you know none of it will really change the next fight. And you kind of just go through the motions because you have to. I just feel like the whole system was trying to give you an illusion of it being deeper than it actually was, and by doing so, it made this system not only not work well, but not really worth learning, understanding, or even using. So I avoided it as much as possible. You know what's crazy? I feel like I'm in the minority here because I just don't see it. When this game came out, people were calling it a masterpiece. Reviewers, YouTubers, everyone. Like this was supposed to be the next big emotional RPG. And you would think that it would be once in a generation kind of release. But when you actually play it, it's just not that. You start to notice that most of the praise about this game wasn't really about how it plays. It was more about the idea of the game, the potential the game has. But nobody talked about how repetitive this game gets, how repetitive the combat gets, how the story starts to become frustrating and less intriguing because they don't give you answers, or how exploration doesn't really go anywhere. And when it comes to exploration, the saying, as wide as the ocean, as deep as a puddle, comes to mind because exploration just feels pointless. It feels like everyone was reviewing the idea, but not the actual game. Because once you're a few hours in, that gap between the hype and what you're actually doing gets wider and wider. And you keep waiting for it to open up, for the game to shift gears, for things to get better, but it just never does. But by no means is this a disaster or a bad game, and it's not broken. It's just not even close to what people said it was. And because it got hyped up so much, for me it ended up feeling way more disappointing than it probably would have if people were just honest in the first place. Especially for me because I was choosing between Black Myth Wukong and this game, and after playing this game, I feel like I would have enjoyed Wukong a lot more. In my honest opinion, at the end of the day, Expedition 33 wants to be deep. It wants to be meaningful, but it doesn't follow through on it. The story's too vague to feel real, the combat doesn't grow and is highly repetitive, and exploration is just there. It's all style and no substance. And the systems that seem cool and unique at first just kind of fade out and become just part of the cycle. It's not a disaster by any means, it's just disappointing to me. It's a beautiful shell with very little inside, and there's so much potential here. And yet, so much of the potential was wasted. And I'm not saying this is a bad game, but maybe my disappointment comes from the fact that this game was hyped up to be some great RPG, and for me, it's just a highly repetitive, shallow, overly emotional, forgettable experience. And to be honest, I think it's kind of ironic that this is a game about being forgotten, yet for me, that's exactly what this game will end up being. Forgotten. Anyway guys, that's it from me for this video. I know a lot of you may not agree with this, but I hope some of you do. Hope you're not too hard on me if you did enjoy Expedition 33. I'm not saying it's a terrible game, I'm just not saying it's what everyone claimed it to be, in my opinion. I think a lot of people gave this game praise because it was made by an indie studio and they feel like they did a good job for what they had or who they were, but I don't believe that we should hold AAA studios to a different standard than we hold indie studios, especially if we're going to review games the same way across the board. If you're going to give an indie game a glowing review when it's highly repetitive and highly disappointing, just because it was made by an indie studio and you feel like an indie studio making a game such as this was a good job, that's great and everything like that, but that's just not fair. Let me know what you think about the game if you've played it in the comments below, and if you haven't played it, maybe hold off and wait till it goes on sale. Just my advice. Take it or leave it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and as always, like, share, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Hippo out. I know that your powers of retention are as wet as a warthog's backside. But thick as you are, pay attention. My words are a matter of pride.